Good afternoon, everybody. We will start this session in the afternoon with the presentation of Mila Sainz. She is the principal investigator of the Gentic research group here at IN3 and will be presenting a talk. It's entitled Promoting Women in Research and Science.
Thank you, Xavi. Thank you, everyone, for being here after the lunch session. And thank you very much to Angel Juan. He's not around, but Angel Juan and his team for counting on me for being here and talking about the different issues that many of you maybe have experienced according to your personal experiences. How many of you have a technical degree here in the room? How many? So, how many of you are computer scientists? Okay, so you will see, I will tackle different issues related to how young people see you, what are their perceptions and their stereotypes, and how they could be a factor that discourage many of them, many males, but also, above all, many females, of entering in this field. So I'm going to tackle issues related mostly to this, and I will also cover certain ideas or certain, let's say, proposals for intervention, so how we can tackle this problem of underrepresentation of women in many STEM fields. As you know, STEM stands for, in English, stands for Science, Technology, and Engineering and Mathematics. And here you can see that on the figure of the, sorry, because this presentation is a little bit, let's see, can you see this left, this graphic on the left side? And on the left side you can see that there is a high underrepresentation of women. Sorry, I'm going to close it. Can you see it even though? Because otherwise it's going to run. So on the left side you can see the underrepresentation of women in many STEM fields, mostly, as I call them, they are mostly engineering and physical science. On the right, on the graphic of the right side, there is the figure representing those women in other non-technological STEM fields. I mean, some fields related to health issues such as medicine, biology, mathematics. In mathematics, we are thinking that women are increasingly being underrepresented in these fields because of the relationship with big data. I think that this is mainly one of the gateways related to that is discouraging many women to enter the field. And women are also underrepresented in physical science, but in other sciences, in other science-related disciplines, they are highly represented. So it's not true that women are not in science. Women are in science, but mostly they are in science oriented to health and other life-related issues, okay? As you see, when you look at these aspects, it's a complex issue because we have to keep in mind that we have different socialization sources, the school, the family, and mass media, and the peers, that at the age where when students make decisions, when they are teenagers, they are around 16, 17 years old, and they have the influence, they have inputs of different socialization agents that discourage or encourage them to enter in these different fields. And in many cases, women are discouraged to enter in those fields that are not related to those gender roles that normally are fostered since childhood to both boys and girls. So across the life course, I mean, we have different inputs and different messages coming from different sources that discourage us to do things that are not, let's say, congruent with those gender roles. So then these have many implications because women are not there. We have a lack of talent of women in many STEM fields, and also we have a lack of men in many education and other disciplines that are more related to the feminine congruent roles, such as taking care of children, raising children, or education, that since the very beginning are associated more with the feminine roles. There are a few women also taking the lead in many STEM fields, and they are not in the fields that are related to the decision-making practices, both in the educational setting and in many professional contexts. So here is a little bit the idea that, you know, we are always from the very beginning, when we look at, for instance, the publicity campaigns that we can look, for instance, at Christmas time, we can see from the very beginning how toys and the different products offered for boys and girls are completely different. Girls are fostered to play with video games, with machines, to play with different toys, whereas girls are raised and brought up to play and fostered to play with dolls and with different items that normally represent many of these gender roles. So I was referring before, I was asking how many of you have a technical degree, because many young people, many teenagers have the idea that people, who are in the technical disciplines, in engineering and physical sciences, physical science above all, they are very intelligent people. They have bright ideas, but they are not very well in personal relationships. They are not good at having social skills. So this is something that is very typical, and this is a reason that we believe those researchers who have been working on this believe that is one of the main deterrent factors for girls to enter in this field. I don't know if you're familiar with the series IT Crowd. Many of you could be familiar with that, but this I was mentioning before to the mass media. The mass media is, in many instances, they are transmitting many of these stereotypes, and they are promoting in many ways that young people to whom those series, for instance, are addressed, have these stereotypical portrayals of the person who is working in, for instance, in typical developing software, or in physical science professions, related professions. So we conducted, I'm going to talk about how 16-year-old students saw physical scientists. They thought that physical scientists are freaks, are geeks. They spend the whole day just coding or writing codes or just on the screen. They are very at work, socially speaking. They don't relate to other people. They spend the whole day with technologies. They are clever. Some of them green. They spend the whole day studying or just in the library. They have a very bad physical appearance. Some of these students thought that even they smell badly, very badly. So again, they are socially awkward, they earn money, some of them figure out that the prototype of someone working in computer science was someone like Bill Gates, someone very, very famous, but they didn't have many contacts with computer scientists themselves, some of them with the person who repaired the computers in their schools. So for them, computer scientist was a figure that was not much in their connections, let's say. And they also, all the examples refer to the physical sciences, refer to masculine properties. And as you can see, if you know this series, the person who is the boss of these two guys, these freaks, and these computer scientists, is a woman who has no idea of computers, who can use a computer. What is this series transmitting? Is this series transmitting? It's transmitting that women are not good at computers, at handling computers and coding. So this is something that we were very interested in knowing, because we think that it's a portrayal that is very easily, let's say, taken advantage from the mass media, because this typical portrayal makes young people to laugh, because it's very, very good to laugh at people who are at work, who are freak or something, and sometimes computer sciences are, the source of these typical, let's say, jokes and so on, As you can see, another research that we did with people who were already in STEM, professional people who were working in STEM, computer scientists in itself. A guy figured out, that computer scientists look this way. As you can see, also they were referring to this isolated person who doesn't take care of others, which is not true, because many of you develop many things that are that have a very important impact, in society. And people, at this age, don't think that, students don't think that your work, as computer scientists, as engineers, as digital developers, have an impact in our lives, and this is something that we believe that specifically discourage girls to enter in the field. So there is also the perception as well at the school and at the secondary school that girls don't have good academic competencies, math academic competencies, that they are worse in technical subjects and in math subjects. So this is something that we have proof with longitudinal data. We have followed students during more than 6 years, and we've seen that systematically girls think that they are worse than they are in STEM fields. So this is something that is very, very important to be taken into consideration, because this is one of the reasons that we also think that discourages them to pursue STEM fields, because they are very good. They even have better grades, better scores than their male counterparts, but they feel that they are worse than they really are. So this is a problem that we consider that is deterring girls from pursuing these STEM fields. Another thing is that, as I mentioned, how those stereotypical portrayals or those sexist beliefs, if there is the belief that women are worse in math, for instance, how young girls internalize these ideas and they reproduce them in their choices. So this is something that happens, and we have seen, that there is something very interesting that we have observed systematically across this longitudinal data, is that boys tend to overestimate their STEM competencies, whereas girls tend to underestimate them, even having the same grades. This is something that happens, and boys overestimate them, even having low grades. So, and we've also proved that when making decisions, when making academic decisions, it's more important how you perceive yourself than the real scores that you have. So this is something that we have to consider when thinking about interventions, how to intervene. So, as I mentioned before in the presentation, it's a complex phenomenon, but I'm going to, according to what I have been talking about in this talk, I'm going to mention some ideas for intervention, how we can tackle, how we can solve the situation. So also it's very important, when thinking about changing, trying to encourage girls into these fields, to make the contributions that women have made in the field, in the different STEM fields, more visible, because there are many women who have contributed to many of these films, but they are not, they don't appear in the textbooks, not only in the textbooks of secondary school students, but also at university. For instance, this is something that many of our participants have mentioned in technical degrees. For instance, many of you could know about Zaha Hadid. Do you know who Zaha Hadid is? Is an architect, one of the main architects who at the moment is the best or the most prestigious architect in the world. So she's a woman, and one of the architects the architects who participated in one of the studies I'm talking about, complained about the fact that when he was at the university, he didn't know anything about this woman, this person who has contributed very much to the field, and who is at the moment one of the most modern architects and prestigious architects in the whole world, for instance. Also, it's very important to highlight the opportunities that STEM fields offer to girls. As I mentioned, many girls and also many boys don't consider that STEM fields are, let's say, could contribute for good, contribute to health, contribute for changing the life of people. And we have to think that many of you are in the field, and for you is unbelievable that what I'm saying, but many people, to be honest, think like in this way. They don't think that the connection between technical degrees and good things, Some people think that even science is not that good for health and so on, Of course, we have to erase the stereotypes about people working in STEM, and also gender stereotypes. We also, when looking at the way teenagers deal with gender stereotypes, we also look at the way, the language they use, and when talking about a typical person working in STEM, we also look at the way, in Spanish we have, the gender, the masculine, and also in Catalan and in other Romance-related languages, we have gender features. The grammar have masculine, neutral, and feminine ways of portraying people, and we look at this as well. And it was incredibly high, the use of masculine nouns, masculine pronouns, and masculine adjectives used by students in order to talk about how a typical person working in STEM or in computer sciences look at, you know. So it's very important to erase these stereotypes, and also, as I mentioned, the connection between engineering and technical degrees in doing good, I mean, to people, and in the social impact that it could have is very important to be highlighted. There is also in the Spanish educational system, and also many other systems, the break between arts and science. And this, to my understanding and to my experience, this is a mistake right now with the artificial intelligence and with the digitalization of our societies. The connection between humanities and other non-STEM, purely highly technologically oriented STEM degrees, the connection between degrees that are not typically technologically oriented is really high. So there are many synergies that should be highlighted, and this could also bring more women into the field. Increase the self-perception of ability of girls in STEM fields is also very important, as I before. Fostering female leadership in STEM activities is also very important. We've seen that when in the classroom, when dealing with teenagers, mostly boys took the lead when dealing with technical issues. This is something that teachers should avoid, and we also should avoid in our homes when we look at when we have these experiences with our own children. We have to promote, I think, mentoring among girls, among women, and in STEM fields, which could also facilitate the working on the acquisition of more female role models that could inspire young girls to be in the field. Sorry, I'm going backwards. Sorry. The curriculum should be sensitive to gender issues, more co-educational aspects related to how to tackle gender in educational context. As I mentioned before, I'm dealing with secondary students and also with young people. So one of my major, let's say, target context is education. So we have to go directly to schools and to the educational system in order to try to change this picture. And the use of inclusive language in classroom and textbooks is very important. And with Mari-Carmen, for instance, she is looking at the way the examples of some exercises, even STEM-related exercises in the classroom, have masculine, no feminine role models, or people exemplifying the different examples to be sought out are men, not women. So training is very important. The initial and long-term training of secondary students and primary students. Many primary students lack of STEM skills, so this should be taken into consideration and should be trained in order to know how to transmit STEM subjects to students and also to girls specifically. Many primary and most primary students are women, as you know, so this should be changed as well, and the interventions could be oriented to change the way STEM subjects are taught in schools, in primary schools and secondary schools as well, of course. And the training of STEM professionals, I think that should be a gender perspective or dimension should be included in the way STEM professionals are educated, both at the university and after a university when developing their professions. The training of career development professionals is also very important because they advise students which course or which degree study or not. And also the involvement of parents is really crucial, because I was really shocked at the very first time that I tried to recruit parents to take part of some of our studies, research, because many of them didn't want to participate because they assume that as we have a law, in Spain we have a law, equality law, and in our context, and that equality has been already achieved. And they don't take much, let's say, effort in participating in many things related to change this. This is something that we should change as well, and involve more parents into the different intervention or measures that we carry out in order to change this field. So more or less, this is, as I mentioned, a very complex topic. Phenomenon. I will be very pleased to respond to your questions, queries, and I hope that I have expressed myself properly. And in this, I think I've been very. So thank you very much. So you have questions.
Thank you, Mila, for your very interesting speech. I would like to ask you, have you analyzed any successful case or case of success in the world in which it can be like an example, and then to analyze why in that country or in that region of the world women are being, at least the same level in terms of percentage as men in studying engineering or this kind of careers? Have you identified any such case study?
There is a case that is the case of Malaysia. Malaysia since 1960s is developing a strategy in order to foster equality between men and women, specifically in STEM. From taking different interventions and different measures at the policy level, in economy, in educational context, and so on, and they have achieved quite good success, but we have to keep in mind many things, that we don't know much about the context where this has been done. So this is something that is being taken as a reference for these issues. And also there is something very interesting that I know you're familiar with, but the more equal the country is, the less likely women are participating in these countries. For instance, Sweden or Finland, they have even less women in these fields. Why? Because there are some hypotheses, and there are people who have trying to answer to this question. Maybe when women in those countries with less equality, they find, for instance, engineering and computer science a profession for sustain themselves and their family. But in our context, it's not as I used to be. I always say this. Being an engineer is not the same today, although it's very, very prestigious, as it used to be in the past in our context. So, have I answered your question? Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Professor.
Thank you very much for, thank you.